too long, Alice.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small.
Friends cannot be neglected. Hurry.
And you know you're going to call Alice.
What's the matter?
The Hatter's the matter.
Hatter is my truest friend. If he's in need, I will help him. It will be a race against time. He is not someone you want as your enemy. Time is a he.
Star Trek, Terminator, Time Cop, Time After Time. Star Trek, Terminator, Time Cop, Time After Time. Normally, wrinkle in time, somewhere in time. Hot tub time machine. Missions. Get the stones. Get them back. Get them back.
One round trip each. No mistakes. No do-overs.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Basically any movie that deals with time travel. Die Hard? No, it's not one. Die Hard? Die Hard? No, it's not one. Die Hard? Die Hard?
I shot a kid. He was 13 years old. 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 He was 13 years old.
Any movie that deals with time travel. Die Hard? No, it's not one. Die Hard? Die Hard?
Oh, it was dark. I couldn't see him. He had a ray gun, looked real enough. You know, when you're a rookie, they can teach you everything about being a cop except how to live with a mistake. Anyway, I just couldn't bring myself to draw my gun on anybody again. Hey, man, how could you know?
Think about it. If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future. And your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future. Exactly.
And there you heard it. All of the films that we've been decoding on this channel since 2012 dealing with time travel, and how we tied them all in together. A common theme across many directors and producers and filmmakers over the last several decades. Time travel. We talked all about how Cern admits to sending small particles of matter into a stream that approaches the speed of light, and that those particles begin to act differently as they approach these speeds. Their mass changes. They actually begin to act interdimensionally. And we talked about how, in theory, as a person travels at this faster and faster speeds, approaching the speed of light, that time seems to slow down. Now, this was actually measured in an experiment with atomic clocks on flights of long distances. And when those people on those flights returned, time was slightly off. So here we are in 2019, and the new Avengers film is all about time travel. They travel through this device that looks a lot like Cern. Not only is it about time travel, but they also seem to disclose what we had already discovered, that Cern is a time machine. The time travel device opens a gateway into hell in the film. At the end, as they're jumping around in time to collect these stones to try to stop the inevitable, evil comes through the portal. So what is the end game for the elite? The end game, I believe, is to open the pit to the abyss and to bring about the end times. To bring the timeless ones from their dimension of timelessness. Remember, there is no time in heaven. They want to bring them into our dimension of time. And no doubt these beings, having spent part of their existence in heaven, may know the front to the back, the beginning to the end, as it may have been disclosed to them by the Creator. Anyway, you guys, take care, be safe.
How can you know?
And the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. He opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke, like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any green plant or any tree, but only those people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were allowed to torment them for 5 months, but not to kill them. And their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings someone. And in those days people will seek death, and will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. They have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon. The first woe has passed. Behold, 2 woes are still to come.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit.
But I did it. I actually did it, Doctor. See, viewing was only the beginning, but like a rudimentary computer, it only took time and development before a new model was born. You harness a wormhole, speed up one end and slow down the other end.
Go on.
I can't.
Mr. Darnell, you realize...
Please, I can't. Let's leave it at this.
How does it work? How does it work?
You have to understand, if I answer that question, it could rip a hole through everything as we know it.
But that's why you're here, isn't it? To change the past, so you're gonna have to give me something.
Dr. Pine, I was under the impression it was never a good idea to force a patient to divulge anything they weren't comfortable with.
I can't keep doing this.
All right. I know this must be frustrating. I can't give you everything. It just wouldn't be safe.
I'm listening.
You say you like science?
I do.
To go back and read the concepts presented by Hawking, Einstein, Lewis, light speed, black holes, wormholes. They were so close. There was just one small piece missing. I'm sure you're aware or somewhat familiar with the concept of wormholes.
Sure, yeah, they're fascinating to wonder about.
If you don't mind, could you tell me what you know?
They're a consequence of Einstein's theory of general relativity. A wormhole, in theory, would act as a shortcut or a passageway through space and time.
The physics are even simpler than your definition. A wormhole creates a tunnel, effectively cutting through two locations in space-time.
Yeah, therefore eliminating the need for three-dimensional travel through space. No more rocket ships. I like Stargate too.
Oh, wow, Stargate. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. Who was that guy in it? He was really good in that old Western.
Kurt Russell?
Kurt Russell, he was good, wasn't he?
Listen, nothing you were telling me is new information, right? The theories about wormholes have existed for a long time, but nobody knows if they actually exist or how to find them.
But I do. They're everywhere. Just a matter of seeing them or harnessing them.
But you haven't explained either. How do you see them? How do you harness them? A machine, some sort of gateway?
Of course you need a machine to sustain a wormhole. But this is where I stop. I have given you the gun. Let me keep the bullets.
Please continue.
I found a way to go back. I was alone, but I found it. My old partner was the only one that knew, but for now, it'll stay that way. The only question is, can the ripples I create be enough to change the future? Or create an alternate one?
Ripples?
Think of the water in that glass as time. Time moves forward constantly, untouched, as still as the water. Go back and try to change something, and it creates a ripple effect. Change has to catch up with time. And everything around it either changes or suffers.
If you've ever been exposed to soap operas, the music in the soundtrack should evoke memories of a long-running show.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. That's the kind of subtlety being leveraged by the filmmaker. Darnell, the time traveler, an inventor of time travel who destroyed the future, says, think of the water in that glass as time. Time moves forward constantly. Untouched, it's as still as the water. Go back and try to change something, bang, and it creates a ripple effect. Read between the lines. The particle collision pictured creates a ripple effect in time, a time impact event. Who is trying to go back or forward to try to change an outcome? Darnell is. That's why he's there meeting with Dr. Pyatt and speaking so persuasively. Darnell himself is playing the role of the destroyer of worlds, the dancing Lord Shiva. Under the lamp, we see an idol of Shiva doing the cosmic dance of destruction, a miniature of the one featured at the Cern facility. There's a horned mask on the wall that represents the horned god Cernunnos, the god of the abyss, who is continually being invoked in ceremonies where magic circles are cast with salt, just like in the Symmetry film. Yes, Cernunnos, Cernunnos. Also, Nodens, Abaddon, Apollyon the Destroyer. It's a clever set. The table lamp paints light on the wall in the shape of an hourglass, hinting of a measure of the sands of time. Under the lamp, you'll find a pitcher of water, a reservoir as drawn from the river of time. Mr. Darnell's pocket watch rests on the coffee table with his time water glass, with the hinged case being a model of folded time-space. The box of tissues on the table is a cube, Think of the cube in the Marvel comic universe, which has to do with a multi-dimensional binding and the control of vast time-space energies. Again, what kind of machine are they talking about in the clip? Did you see the picture on the wall that artfully illustrates the particle collisions? Darnell mentioned small pieces, like subatomic particles. He mentioned a gun and bullets, and the collider fires protons like bullets from a machine gun. Did you notice the picture of the full moon next to the one of the particle collisions? That's a celestial timekeeper, the one that rules the night according to the foundational cosmological text of Genesis chapter 1. It's appointed for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and to give light on the earth, which is a matter of the revelation of supernatural insight and the Hebrew Moedim, the prophetic schedule of holy days. The moon silently affects the tides of the seas on earth in endless cycles. With that influence due to the interaction of gravity relative to mass, and with the water and the sea as a metaphor for time, that's a potent symbol in the context of the particle collider, with its vast array of enormously powerful ring magnets arrayed in a giant ring. Sonic energy is also used to accelerate the particles, so the LHC literally sings as the particles dance. Symmetry's opera and dance. When Darnell bangs the coffee table and we see the imagery of the particle beam collision so clearly illustrated, is there any doubt about what time machine they're talking about? With all the clues, do they really need to say it? Need more evidence? Darnell doesn't actually hit the coffee table with his fist, not directly. He hits a book that sits on the table, which is wrapped around with two rubber bands, one red and one green. The red band represents a stream of particles traveling around the LHC, and the green band is the opposing stream. The crossing of the bands represents the crossing of the streams where the collisions occur. He strikes the rubber bands at their crossing. Bang! What's in Darnell's little black book? Notes on particle physics, time-space manipulation, and time travel? Are the bands made of rubber because time is flexible and in flux, able to contract and expand? Is there a redshift of the beams relative to one another, where he's slowing down one and speeding up the other, which Darnell had already claimed was a general principle involved with harnessing a wormhole? There's another aspect of the rubber band-bound book that should be mentioned. The two men are actually the same man who traveled back in time on a mission to convince himself not to make the mistake of building the device that would destroy the world in 50 years' time. The rubber bands represent the life of the man, where there are two at once, at the crossing of the future with the past in the present.
Here's what I worry about coming out of that place, is all this spirit deception, using it to deceive people. They connect spirituality and science together. They've got what they want when that happens. Father, in Jesus' name, there may be somebody sitting in this house this morning that's awake now. They've wakened up, they're alarmed, and they're worried. We'll do something about it. In Jesus' name, and for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're running out of time. We're in the last days. The spirit of the Antichrist. Why do you think these little towers are everywhere? Radio frequency towers. They're not even being used for anything right now. but they're putting them everywhere. They're not cell phone towers. They're the towers that will be used to help change the frequencies, to try to control the masses. But they can't control us that are saved.
Looking for how God holds everything together. That's why they call it the God particle. They're trying to find Jesus, but they don't want to find Jesus. So they're trying to find what is it that holds all matter together. However, they also believe that there are parallel realities around us, other dimensions, and there could be other intelligence there. Another thing we Christians already know, right? Why not just come and ask us? You don't need to build a collider. However, there's a reason God put them on the other side of that veil, and you might not want to open the door. And here's the thing, their own director of Cern has gave interviews to the British press in which he admits that's what they're trying to do. They want to open a door to another dimension. And he said, when we open this door, he said, something might come through it. It's named after Apollyakon, the gateway to the god Apollo. But what does the book of Revelation say? That an angel comes down with a key to the bottomless pit and opens that gateway. And guess who is the god down in there? The king over the bottomless pit, Apollyon, Abaddon, the king of the bottomless pit. And we're trying right there to open a gateway.
When we was talking back there, I said, you know, it sounds to me like you're describing they're trying to open the door, the gate to hell.
Right.
Okay. Well, here's the thought. God literally sealed and locked demons into the earth that would not be released until the last days. And now we have evidence that man is the one that's trying to open the door and release them.
Well, we can start with the tunnel in Switzerland that had a strange demonic satanic ritual coming out of the abyss.
So what we're going to cover here is the Goddard Tunnel ritual that we watched in Switzerland. It's not at Cern, but it is in Switzerland, and it is definitely connected with the rituals going on. I believe they spent, 8 million euros on this ritual event with the Goddard Tunnel. And Chris will go into depth discussing which Sumerian story that is connected to this Goddard Tunnel event. Let's go over the tunnel ritual, what was symbolized in this ritual, and then we'll connect it to some ancient history of what's actually going on.
Okay. The first thing that you see is a crowd of zombies coming out in their orange suits. There's a lot of satanic, weird sound music going on during this whole ritual that was awful. There's so much going on in this ritual that we can only cover so much, but basically it's a ritual of coming out of the abyss, beheadings, sacrifices, and then coming out into the light, basically. One of the things that was significant in this ritual was the Baphomet and the worship of the Baphomet, the veil covering the people's heads, so they cannot see. These people that are, they strip their orange suits off and they're dancing really crazy. And, and then you have these people with a bunch of trees on their heads. And actually, I have a picture that shows the Proto-Shiva and Cernunnos, that's the gatekeeper of Orion, where the gate is, with a tree coming out the center of its head, because the head is actually a trident and it symbolizes the Kabbalah tree and the crown chakra. But the head on these people, they have trees growing out. So it is the tree of consciousness that grows out of it. And they come out of this huge tunnel with mountains on the sides with this portal looking thing with a bunch of eyeballs. It has a bunch of different things going on the screen, which is pretty wild. And then they do this dance with the Baphomet, and this lady in red comes out pregnant. And then this other girl Baphomet type figure comes out, and they're just doing weird dances. And then people with these big old head things on.
So we're just trying to figure out what is this craziness that we're watching. Rick Wiles came out with the initial video on True News of the actual Goddard ritual, filmed by Ruppli, which is the Russian television news service. So we're watching these things. We got Angela Merkel there. We got the French representative there. And everybody's trying to figure out what is going on here. But basically, we've connected that this is another ritual for the New World Order related to a Sumerian epic tale. What I found interesting when we were looking at this, we came across this one photo of a lady with a bird's nest on her head. And, I looked at that and, I'm monitoring these stories from these other sci-fi channels and stuff. And I look right at her and I go, wow, that's that Dr. Jones character from the 12 Monkeys, the sci-fi time travel show. Or somebody who looks like a spitting image of her. And I said, that can't be. So we went and checked her out on IMDb, the internet database. And this is a Katarina Jones character in 12 Monkeys, a famous German actress. We put a couple photos up there of her with the actual Goddard thing, and and it looks like her. It looks like a spitty image of her. And I'm going, what is the lead character from 12 Monkeys, supposedly the person who created time travel, doing in this Goddard ceremony? And what does this have to do, which automatically connects it with our previous CERN stuff and their manipulation of time that they're involved in. So if this is actually the exact same actress, I think this is a very symbolic connection between time travel, the Goddard ceremony, and the portals opening. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, it's exactly what the ritual is based on the same rituals that was in ancient history. We know that CERN says that they want to open a portal to a parallel dimension, and we know that the Golden Gate and the Silver Gate are to transport humans and demons through each gate. I think this is the same thing, but it's a ritual of opening the Golden Gate for the Antichrist, because there was something significant in December 21st, 2012, which basically was a grand crossing. And each grand crossing represents the 8-pointed star. This you can find on the Mayan calendars, the Dendera map. You can see this on old ancient hieroglyphs in their cosmic calendars, because this is what they go by. So Shamash was a god, Thoth's son, which Thoth is also Enlil, and his name is Shamash. He's also Marduk, Utu, which means iron, and the planet Mars. And his twin is Inanna, which is Venus, Ishtar, which is copper. And we know that Tubal-Cain was a smith, builder of iron and brass, which is copper, in the Bible. And we know that Mars and Venus, which if Mars represents the sun and Venus represents the moon, and these two individuals are really the same being, but they represent the sun and the moon. The sun is 6 and the moon is 9, so this is where we get the 69. And each star has 8 points. So if you look up Shemash's name, his name is the 8-pointed star, and then 4 of them are waves, like electric waves. And if you look up Inanna's name, her name is also an 8-pointed star, also in hieroglyphs. Venus is the 8-pointed star in hieroglyphs, and so is Anu. And 369 does equal 88. 88 also means magic. And I translated 88, and it came out to maggot, and I said, what's maggot? I don't even know what maggot is. I went in and translated it from Latin into many different languages and trying to figure out, well, what does 88 mean? And it said it meant maggot. So I look up maggot, and maggot is used to define a concrete person and another defining a celestial entity. So half human, half entity, I guess. And then I looked more into the word to see what it meant, and it means magic. So 88 translates exactly to magic. And so the 2 pillars are the 2 mountains representing the 2 pillars on each side of the gate that want to merge, 2 8s merging into 1 8 to become male and female, dark and light, yin and yang. This is what the symbolism is that they're making. And we know that the 8 is the ogdoad. 8 represents the pyramid with the 8 sides, and 8 is the frequency of Saturn. And the 3 actually represents Saturn, 6 represents the sun, and 9 represents the moon. So that is your Trinity concept. And I can prove that because Om, I was looking into that chant that they do, which is Om, because Om also means 88. Om is 8, composed of 8 parts representing the ogdoad. Om is Shiva, the star in the crescent. It's Brahma and Vishnu. And if you look at old pictures of Brahma and Vishnu, you'll see the lotus flower, which Brahma is sitting on with his 4 heads, 4 faces representing the lion, eagle, ox, and man, because Brahma is Saturn. And his umbilical cord is stuck to Vishnu, which is Jupiter. So Om is really chanting to all of the 8 planets, including the sun and the moon, which is very interesting because when people are doing the yoga or they're doing the chanting and they're doing the Oms and they have these, they're going through the vibration of the chakras, each chakra represents a planet. And when you get to the crown chakra with this Om and this vibration, this is actually worshiping Satan. It's worshiping the gods of the dead. And these are the gods of the dead that these people worship. They're coming out of this tunnel, out of the abyss, and they're worshiping Lucifer. They're worshiping these gods of the dead, which are the ogdoad.
What we're witnessing is another part of the great work, the overall awakening, as they would say, to the Luciferian awakening, welcoming in their deity and the dead. The year of light, which was in 2015, was ending in February 4th through 6th of this year, of 2016. They specifically ended it in Merida in the Yucatan Peninsula. I have been there before. And it was fascinating because what they did was they went out to the Chichen Itza pyramid. And I was going, what does this have to do with the year of light? And the Chichen Itza pyramid, of course, if you look at it, and I've been on top of the pyramid in Chichen Itza, it's a Mayan step pyramid, again, connecting us back to the Mayan calendar. It's also a pyramid without a capstone on it, if you look at it. So it also represents, in my way of looking at it, that they're now at the capstone aspect of their New World Order.
Stephen Hawking, he calls the God particle could destroy the universe. He keeps warning.
You see, it's going to become difficult for people to stay contained or controlled.
in the book of the Revelation of John, it does speak about a messenger from the upper levels coming down to earth and opening up a doorway to the bottomless pit down inside the earth to let things out. So maybe this is research being done to develop the technology we need here to do such a thing. I don't know. I mean, it's just a wild guess.
Right. And it's interesting, I think, that, it seemed like even in the Old Testament, whenever there are mentions of high places and things like that, it required, at least for the fallen entities, required some sort of sacrifice or some sort of ritual for these fallen entities to come through. It seems like God's angels are freely able to, traverse as they will, but the fallen entities require some sort of key, if you will, for us to allow them in, so to speak. So perhaps this is just a large human project to create the biggest doorways to the fallen entities to come through. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to see some rather astounding events in the next 12 to 24 months, because other factors in biblical prophecy seem to be coming to play later this year. And that would then require the presence of this fake alien landing invasion or whatever. But to do that, there are going to have to be a lot of them appear. And I'm wondering if God himself isn't going to open up one of these portals to cast Satan and his minions out of his universe down into ours for the final battle. At that time, of course, these beings will appear all over the place, and I think technology for them to fly around, saucers and that kind of stuff, have been developed already since 1952 or so, when we started sharing bases, underground bases, with these fallen ones, quote-unquote grays and aliens. But I think this has been prepared for the time when the gateway opens and these beings are pushed out of their level to ours.
The Freemason, New Atlantis, Francis Bacon connections of the United States. What is the ritual being played out here? Because we're watching these rituals. The Goddard Tunnel is a ritual connected to the story of Shamash burrowing through the mountain, right? Through the rock.
Right.
And
Which
that's
represents
a name.
the pineal gland, because the three stars of Orion represent the three pyramids, and the center part of the trident, which is Cernunnos's head on Orion, is the pineal gland. So that's what it represents.
Yeah, so here is Chris connecting the story of Shamash coming through the mountain, which is the pineal gland. If you study the Giza pyramids and the belt of Orion and how it relates to consciousness or the brain or these things, the pineal gland is the center point, and then you have the thalamus and the pituitary glands also connected to these three pyramids if you studied that aspect of the pyramids. So we started looking at, well, if 9/11 occurred in New York City, and New York was, well, the original 13 colonies were founded on rebellion number 13. 13 stands for rebellion. The 13 colonies were a rebellion. It starts making me think of the Mystery Babylon, the Tower of Babel, Babylon, and all the connections to the United States. And these twin towers, and Chris and I had looked at the Washington Arch, right? Remember the Washington Arch? We had looked at Gemini twins as the 2/8s, as Chris is talking about, and how the One World Freedom Tower is the other 8, or the marriage of heaven and earth, or the androgynous male-female aspect, which is the deity Baphomet. I'm trying to get this point across to people. Baphomet, the IXXI gate Baphomet, the deity of the Templars, is the transgender movement. It is the homosexual movement. It is the trying to make the world's occupants represent the deity that the one world order people worship, which is this androgynous God, or the marriage of heaven and earth, or the marriage of the male and female. They want transgender or this androgyny. Our channel is named after the Matrix concept. And if you look at the makers of the Matrix, the Wachowski brothers, well, if you look at them now, they're both the Wachowski sisters. So again, the followers of the Baphomet Mystery School, the followers of Masonic followers, the Mystery School followers, the One World Religion followers, they're really pushing this stuff. They target as other commentators have focused on, had pre-scheduled this transgender conflict to occur years ago, that they had basically this whole transgender bathroom thing. It was nothing more than a planned attack on the old order to bring in the new order, or the new world order, and the new world order is the world of the Baphomet. So when you're contemplating transgender and the androgyny, or the changing of sexes, you're looking at the marriage of heaven and earth, or the opposites, fusion of the opposites. And all the old religions, if you look at Taoism, they have the fusion of the 5 elements. They have the marriage of heaven and earth. And that gets us into all this yoga stuff, the marriage of heaven and earth. These rituals that they do. I know a lot of people don't think that there's anything negative involved in the practice of yoga, but yoga is a term meaning yoking, and it is yoking as spiritual. There is a spiritual component that yokes the practice. Now, you can do calisthenics, you can do all those, and I understand why people feel good stretching and all these kinds of stuff. But the point is, when you're involved in a spiritual practice that has its origin in the spiritual practice, the people can tell you whatever you want to hear to make you do it, but you're still involved in a opening of the pineal gland, or the Shakti part of the Kundalini energy. And it's preparing the world for the opening of the third eye, and then, of course, trapping you in that open serpent third eye under the working of the New World Order. We were looking at how does the checkerboard Freemason approach the United States work? And that's what got us looking into a couple of the interesting aspects in the United States.
We put together what's going on with America, lining up the trident with the silver, the gold, and the pineal gland merging together.
These rituals are being performed by sorcerers or magicians, occultists, to basically, this is the way they conduct their magic. And this type of magic is called chaos magic, and it's also based off sigil magic. The sigil is the creating an image to draw energy into, and then the releasing of that energy is the destroying of that image. So this is a very old form of magic that these people are operating under. What they're doing is, through trauma and tragedy, the demonic spirit, the demonic energies are vampiring the energy off of humans. This is the whole Matrix concept of the Matrix, was that humans are soul energy, spiritual energy, and that these fallen angels, the angelic realm that has rebelled, and the demonic that have rebelled against God, are unplugged from God, and they are vampiring the spiritual or soul energy from the human race through traumatizing it, setting up these things so that they can draw off negative energy. So it is a vampiric process. So 9/11 was the beginning of this march across America in the symbolic sense of the Silver Gate here, the intentional joining of the Gemini twins, which I pointed out before over and over again. The Kelly brothers represent the Gemini twins of NASA. The two brothers represent the Gemini twins and their ceremonies that they do between one being on the earth and one being in heaven, the joining of heaven and earth again. We started with New York City and that sigil magic, which was drawing in the trauma of 9/11 or the Silver Gate ritual in New York City that the Rockefellers had set up through the Washington Arch with the Twin Towers to show the destruction of the towers, to gather the energy of the trauma of America. Also, the removing of the towers is the transitioning of power from America, because there's a transitioning in the New World Order from destroying the old order, which was the American freedom of democracy, well, a representative republic, to a tyranny system, which is represented by the pyramid. Because under a pharaoh or under an Egyptian system, it's all tyranny. It's a fascist, tyrannical system that's run by the pharaoh, which would be the Antichrist character, and his minions, or the religious followers of his that are the elite class, which is shown in Plato's book, The Republic, the form of leadership they want to follow, which is you're born by blood into an elite class, and you rule over the slaves through a military fascist order of military guards. And that's basically what the New World Order is. It's a tyranny system. But we started mapping the Giza pyramids across the United States, and we started noticing with Cern and Cernunnos the site of the goddess, or Isis. We began talking about Isis and her march across the Middle East, piecing back together Nimrod, or Osiris, by destroying the opposition. And we have the goddess sitting out in the harbor of New York City representing Isis. So we're marching from Isis all the way across America until we end up over on the West Coast in San Francisco and the Golden Gate to where the sun. So we're transitioning from Isis to Osiris again. What we found interesting was the middle part of the St. Louis Arch, which is what we believe is the pituitary gland.
Pineal gland.
Okay.
It's the center of the trident.
So the St. Louis represents the center of the trident, the 3 points that we were talking about with the trident: the New York City, the Old Order, the Isis and the goddess, the pineal gland, in the middle, St. Louis, the arch, and then we have the West Coast, Golden Gate Bridge, moving to the New Order, also the sun god, Shamash.
Yeah, and it's interesting because right there where the pineal gland is the 88th degree of the United States. And what's really fascinating about that and about all these dates that we've been streaming together is that we talked about Jupiter being in the womb on November 20th when the Jubilees ends and the new king is supposed to be announced during that time, or power goes over to the Vatican. So that is just known throughout history that that's what happens during the end of this Jubilee, with this 50th year type thing that happened with the end of Vatican II. And then we have the 50 states of the United States. And so we have this checkerboard grounds that we're looking at with the United States and the Freemasons. If that's on the 88th degree and we have Shamash coming up through the mountain, tearing apart the United States, this is a huge ritual that possibly could happen because on August the 17th, the cosmic egg, which is a total solar eclipse. This is the same thing that happened December 25th, 3117. This is what the Egyptians would raise the casket of Osiris, and they would do the ritual to open the portal to raise Horus. And this is the same thing that Cern is doing, the same exact thing. And we'll have to go into more of that with Anthony. We have a lot of detail with the Z-pinch, and we're talking about the Z-pinch with the United States, with the pineal gland in the center, the silver and golden gate, because the Shin rings represent Shamash and Inanna. And these are the 8-pointed stars. 8-pointed star is the star of chaos, and you can look that up. Star of chaos is the 8-pointed star. And this is their name written in the 8-pointed star in hieroglyphs. So you have the moon and the sun wanting to merge. Then you have the 88th degree of the United States possibly being split into two. And then we have the Ogdode, which is the 8, the egg going across, hitting exactly on Missouri.
years after people, St. Louis's gateway arch has worn its stainless steel skin as armor against the dragon's breath of corrosion. But stainless steel isn't invincible.
It doesn't last forever. The mechanism for final failure will probably be around the center of the arch at the top. That's its thinnest point.
The thinnest points are the two sections that form the so-called keystone. They're steel triangles, 17 feet long by 18 feet high. They were the last pieces to be installed. The keystone is so critical to the structure's stability that until it was inserted, a temporary stabilizing truss had to be used to keep the two legs from collapsing. Before the pieces were lifted into place on October 28, 1965, a Roman Catholic priest and a rabbi blessed the keystone. Now the prayers of man are of little help. The keystone buckles and drops from the structure.
The two legs of the arch would not be able to stand on their own, and they would fall down to the ground.
On August 17th.
And now, isn't Missouri an interesting place in fiction as far as it relates to the Wizard of Oz?
Yes, because we're talking about all of this stuff is just like mind blowing. So we have Ohm, and we talked about Ohm and how Ohm is the 8, and Ohm is Saturn and Venus and Jupiter that represent the 8 planets. And this is representing the Ogdo. So we have the Ohm, and I was doing a lot of research a long time ago, and I realized that Ohm, backwards it's Mo, and we know that the Hebrew is written backwards. There's other languages that were written backwards before also, but Mo is a fictional region neighboring the land of Oz. It is sometimes called the beautiful valley of Mo. The land of Mo is mentioned in the life and adventures of Santa Claus, as well as in the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and it appears in the Scarecrow of Oz. Because this writer, Frank Baum, who wrote the Master Key with the Eye, the Emerald City of Oz going through the 2 pillars, he wrote all of these stories about TikTok and all of this stuff, which is interesting because in the Adventures of Santa Claus, he's Cernunnos with the 2 horns, and he finds Cain, which is the 1 horn because Cain's the middle pillar. He finds Cain, and he gives him to Tefnut, a lioness, in the movie. And the lioness raises Cain. And this is also an Egyptian hieroglyphs with the lioness and Cain, Canis Ptah. So it's quite fascinating that you can put this Mo, and he made this huge map and everything. It looks like a real map that this guy, Frank Baum, made in the land of Mo. And I also found it interesting because Mo is the abbreviation for MOSFET, and it's a switch in the center. It's like quantum tunneling. So the switch has to be on and off, kind of like the quantum computer at a certain processing level in order to turn the switch. And this is what I try to discuss with Anthony about the switch and the Birkeland currents, which represent 88, connect together from the trident above from the trident below. And that's what Cern is trying to create, is that current that goes together to open up the portal.
And what's also interesting with us stumbling across the Missouri, the Arch, the gateway to the west is what the Missouri Arch is about. What's also interesting about that is that, again, following on the Oz concept out there, we have parts of Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. We have a mountain range that has been found to be called the Ozark, which is the Ozark. And in this area, we also have some of these deep, dumb facilities for the elites that has been shown in the past. So we're marching across the United States from the events of 9/11 to the Arch of St. Louis, which is the pineal gland, is what we're speculating with the trident, all the way out to the West Coast and the Golden Gate. So we are looking at a ritual march across the United States, transitioning from Inanna to Shamash. It's just absolutely fascinating. Well, of course, we're going to have to do further shows on this with Anthony involved in looking at the Z-Pinch, looking at more with the Osiris machine and Cern, and also how it applies to the United States.
Hopefully we can do that soon. Just before we go, I wanted just to touch on the 88 really quick and just say that 88 equals 7, which is Shiva. Shiva means 7. Shiva is also means Sirius. 8 plus 8 is 16, and 1 plus 6 is 7. So all of these numbers are magic. They're magic numbers. And 7 equals 4 and 3, which represents the swastika that we talked about, Ursa Major, connected to the pole star, is another 8. And the capstone that Tim was talking about is the 8. It is the Ogdode. It is the stone that Thoth apparently laid when he was the Bennu bird as the sun. And so these 8 deities represented Helios, which is the 9, the Ennead. These 8 deities are the capstone. The capstone ends in 5776, which is the New World Order. And I'll put several links that people can look at regarding the calendar of the pyramid. The pyramid has been around a long time. The base of it is 1776. It ends in 5776. And that goes along with the other calendars as well. When you put them together, it's pretty fascinating. Something big did happen in December 21st of 2012, and that's 369. It's 33 and 5, and it adds up to 369, 88, 911. So those are all magic numbers.
Exposing these people is very important. It's not to sensationalize them. It is to expose them, to shine the light of day on them. People can't deny this is what's going on. They can't deny that the folks who are involved with Christian ministries pointing out the working of these United Nations, Satanist, Luciferian factions and their rituals is going on. People can't deny it once we expose it. You just will not see this on the mainstream media because their job is to distract and not to inform. And what we're doing here, the free alternative Christian media, is exposing, shining the light, getting the information out there so you can do your own research and verify what we're talking about. Thank you, Chris, for today. This was awesome. What you've shown with the ancient history, depiction, rituals connected to the coming New World Order, Osiris, the stories of Shamash coming through the mountain, the pineal gland, the Goddard Tunnel, and the role of America in the forming of the New World Order. So this was a great show. We'll continue the Baphomet discussion related to transgenderism and the promotion of homosexuality to transition to an asexuality, gender-neutral kind of world where any type of sex is accepted, pedophilia, any form of sex. So this is their God, and what is it? The whole of the law? Do as thou wilt may.
Mm-hmm.
Or do as thou will. So, they're Satanists, and that's straight up. Then their Baphomet is they want the world to emulate Baphomet, and that's what's going on.
Oh.
And of course, Target is with their symbol represents the Luciferian agenda. So they're, of course, leading the way in representing the Baphomet issue. So we will talk to you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Logic before authority.
Hi guys, this is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on Logic Before Authority. Hope y'all guys are doing good, doing well, and living in the truth and love and light. Due to circumstances I can't control, I can't go back live again today. and but I wanted to show you a few things, and then I'm going to do things work out tomorrow. I will be live again, and I'll continue with the last video of decoding not only I Pick Goat, but talking about all the things that are related to the Illuminati signaling their reset of time. But I constantly, it's an obsession beyond anything I've ever had in my life. I constantly research and try to figure things out, you know. And so I just thought I'd show you a couple of those things that won't be included, at least unless I change the video that I have planned. But I thought I'd show you a few things tonight that are related. And so what I've got here, what we're looking at is a video that was released from the YouTube channel called Grand Central Terminal. Well, it used to be Grand Central Station, as we all, well, most of us know it was Grand Central Station. But now it's, in this time, Grand Central Terminal. Anyways, it's a video showing off the place after they had renovated it and so on. Okay, so I want to show you this video, and you'll see why. And then I've got a couple other things to show you here. I've got it slowed down to 25% because it goes too fast, you might say, intentionally. So let's take a look. All right, we're 2 seconds in, and up here on the roof, this is showing the roof of Grand Central Terminal, and I'm going to show you why they changed the name to Grand Central Terminal from station. But up on the roof is constellations in the building, okay? And there are 13 windows. 13, kind of like a clock, except for 13 is the controlling point, the center, like I've said, of the clock. But what you can see on the roof when they first show it is Orion. They have a depiction of Orion, which ties back to Egyptians, the pyramids, the whole thing. And then they have these arched windows that have bars on them. All the windows in Grand Central Station or Terminal have bars on the windows. And there's, like I said, there's 13 windows. There's 10 of these, and there's 10 of these, and then 3 other windows, 3 other bigger windows. So let's let it play a little bit more. And there's the other 3 windows, okay, coming into view there. So 13 windows. And right away you can see that over here on the right hand side, and you can see a little bit of one right here, you can see that there is, it looks like the same or very similar to the thing that the apple that they drop. So the lighting in the building or at least part of the lighting, are representations of the apple, or the torus field, energy flow field, which is specifically directly tied to a time reference. The 13 windows are a time reference, and Grand Central Station itself, as you can see by the boards, that's all about time. It's timing of arrivals and departures, okay? And then, of course, they have to show us the time clock as well. Which, if you look at this time clock closely, one thing is it has one of the light globes depicted here behind it, okay, which is the apple, and then a four-sided clock, okay, like the four winds of the earth. And then the ball sits on top of, it's kind of like the apple has been dropped into time, and time is water. If you've been on my channel for a little while, time is water, or is symbolized by water, and the apple has dropped into the water and popped back up and caused a splash, and it is sitting on a pinnacle of water. I've looked at, I don't know if I have one here, but I've looked at other photos of this clock, which we'll see it actually here in a minute. I have it where you can see this better, but it's like an apple or something that's been dropped into the water and it popped back up. And this is sitting on the top of a, frozen in time, on the top of a pillar of water. Okay. And here you can see that there are these time apples, okay, that are hanging back here. You can see that visually there are 8 visible, okay. I'm not sure if there's actually 8, but visibly there are 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 visible. And 8 is absolutely a time reference. What this guy does, he's an illustrator, and he comes in and he draws a depiction of Grand Central Terminal. I can't even hardly say it because it's station. But he depicts it frozen in time. That's what a photo is, or a drawing is. It's something frozen in time. Okay, so I wanted to show you that, and then here is Let me move this over a little bit. See, well, this is actually a good spot. You can see it says, be transported, Grand Central Terminal, with a focus on clock. And you can see now what I said about the base of the clock. It looks like where something has been dropped in the water and it popped back up. And there's a flow of water coming up. See that? What else is it if it's not that? Okay. And something I found strange was these are windows, and there are images popping up in these windows. See how they're popping up and going away? And I didn't know what those were, and I thought for a second that these might be walkways in here. But then I checked, and I don't think there's no walkways up here. So it's like strange imagery popping up here. I was able to use a tool and download this GIF or video, basically. And some very strange imagery, but I'm not going to get into that right now. There's a few other things I want to show you. This is an image of Mecca, okay? Photo of Mecca, in which you can see the largest clock tower in the world, okay? With some writing above it, and to be sure, tons of symbolism on it, okay? Standing in between two towers, okay? Which I think represent sun and moon, okay? And then you have the cube, the Saturn cube down here, which is time, represents time. Big, huge clock, time. Cube on the floor, time. Okay? And the people, the Muslims who go in here and they walk around and around this thing, represents the flow of time. And if you ever look at how the Muslims walk around this, they walk counterclockwise. Why do they walk counterclockwise? Well, I'm sure they probably mostly don't know, but I think I know why they do. At the top of the clock is something else. It's a very much known Islam symbol, which is the crescent moon, right? Crescent moon. And there's something else here that most people don't notice. This is writing. This is Hebrew writing. What this means in Hebrew is 666. This is literally 666 written here, except for it's written as 660 and 6. 660 and 6 is what is written on this clock. You can look it up and prove it to yourself. I could prove it to you, but that's what it is. Okay? Now, the crescent moon is a known symbol of Islam, as well as the Masons and the Shriners. This is a known symbol of the Masons, the Shriners, and Islam, and it is Islam, and it is the Masons. Masons and the Shriners are rooted in Islam. You know, if you go outside tonight right now it actually just turned after midnight. I'm sitting here after midnight making this video, and it's May the 8th, 2019. And for you, you're witnessing something, an event, me speaking, that happened in the past, which in itself is amazing, really, if you think about it. But the crescent moon, if you go outside and look at it, it actually looks pretty much just like this. Right now, it's turning and starting to lay on its back. And I can't help but relate it to this image. Okay? Of the crescent moon laying on its back in Islam. And knowing what their mantra is, which is shown right there on their largest clock in the world. 660 and 6. And what I'm getting at is, it kind of struck me last night that I wondered if there was going to be a point in time that we would look up in the sky and this, because it seems like the moon, every time we go through a cycle where the moon is, which growing up as a child, I don't recall seeing the moon laying on its back, but every time we do, it seems to be laying a little bit further on its back. Each time in the last year or so, a little bit further on its back. I wonder if this thing in the near future, and I pretty much mean this year, we're going to see it laying in that completely on its back mode, you know? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think there's a reason for the imagery of it laying on its back. So there's that. And we're talking about Freemasonry and all this, and I've been looking at clocks, you know, and the reason why they're all set to this time right here. And I think I understand it a bit better. And in my video that I started yesterday, that I'll be going live and finishing tomorrow, I'm going to explain more about why we see this imagery. And it could have to do with what you're seeing right here. One hand pointing to the sun, one hand pointing to the moon. Could have something to do with that. But it's something I've noticed is that so many new clocks are pointing to the same time. And I don't think it's by chance. Like, you've got the Omega symbol here. You got the Masonry symbolism here. You've got the all-seeing eye, which I know it's something somebody created and put it out. Doesn't necessarily mean exactly what we're looking for. Right? And there's even a tattoo of the same time. Looks like a woman, maybe. Maybe. These days, you don't know. Of that same time, see, this is the 12 o'clock point here. On a tattoo. Time waits for no one. And here's another one. Somebody else, I assume a female, getting the same tattoo or similar with a rose, which is about time. and a clock, which is about time, and a rosary beads, which is about time. Everything is time, time, time. And then with this specific time on it as well. I just find that very strange. Because when you take it into consideration with so many other things that are out there, like here is Grand Central Station's new logo. Okay? You see how the T and the C and the G are all interwoven. See? The G goes behind the T and then in front of the T. And the C goes in front of the T and then behind the T. And then the T goes behind the G and then in front of the G. Yet behind the C and in front of the C. And then behind the G. And it's surrounded by a circle with 8 flowers on it. Inside of an octagon, inside of an octagon, which has to do with Saturn, which is time. And these letters, the way that they're depicted, are depicting letters existing in more than one place at once. You can't overlap in our world a C under and then over, a G under and then over a T. That's a time representation. And this is the new logo for Grand Central Terminal. Okay? And here's why they changed the name to Grand Central Terminal. They wanted it to match a certain gematria value, a certain resonance, a certain frequency. Okay? That's why they changed it. Right there. They needed it to match. Somehow or another, it was named incorrectly. Or the time had come that the name needed to change. And as I've shown you, there's been plenty of references when it comes to Grand Central Terminal. It's all about time. And there's so many things going on that's all about time. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to end the video tomorrow, live video, assuming some crazy chaos don't happen. I'm going to be live and I'll be doing that live with y'all guys. Guys, if y'all guys understand what I'm doing and realize that it's important to understand and be wise as a serpent so that we will not be caught off guard with what's coming.
Because, you know, as you know, some of you may know, Christ, the transfiguration was to do with Christ, and he formed a bridge to the Father in the Bible. And this is obviously the inversion of that. It's the transfiguration of their kingdom. It's the birthing of hell on earth. It's the bridge from hell to earth, from the abyss to earth, to break loose the ones that are imprisoned, the spirits, the fallen, as the Bible all describes.
There's another name for that wall. The veil.
They know that they could be opening or parting the veil.
It was on the Day of Atonement that Moses came down from Mount Sinai for the second time, and he put a veil over his face.
Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands, He was not aware that his face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him, and he spoke to them. Afterward, all the Israelites came near him, and he gave them all the commands the Lord had given him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking to them, he put a veil over his face. But whenever he entered the Lord's presence to speak with him, he removed the veil until he came out. And when he came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, they saw that his face was radiant. Then Moses would put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with the Lord.
And are not like Moses, who used to put a veil over his face so that the sons of Israel would not look intently at the end of what was fading away. But their minds were hardened, for until this very day at the reading of the Old Covenant, the same veil remains unlifted, because it is removed in Christ. But to this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their heart. But whenever a person turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty.
The veil was first put on right on the Day of Atonement. I believe this will also be the day that the veil is removed. The word veil means to cover or conceal. The word unveil means to reveal. In a wedding, the veil of the bride is removed. We are the bride of Christ, and our veil will be completely removed on the day when we see him face to face. 1 Corinthians 13:12 says,
For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known.
The Day of Atonement is known as the face-to-face day because only on this day was the high priest allowed to go into the Holy Holies and live to tell about it. On no other day of the year was anyone allowed to ever enter the Holy of Holies. The high priest would remove the veil and enter into the Holy of Holies. When Christ died as our atonement, the veil was ripped in two, and we can now boldly enter the throne of grace to find mercy in our time of need. The Day of Atonement is the day of the unveiling, or the day of revealing. Colossians 3:4 says,
When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory.
Isaiah 26:21 says,
And the earth will give birth to the departed spirits. Come, my people, enter into your rooms and close your doors behind you. Hide for a little while until indignation runs its course. For behold, the Lord is about to come out from his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth will reveal her bloodshed, and will no longer cover her slain.
Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions. with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people.